Hello, everybody. Welcome to Do and Drew podcast. Before we get started, we're just going to take a quick moment to kind of sync up with our breath. We're calling it Conspire with Do and Drew. Conspire literally means to breathe together, and I think it's important for us to remember that as we conspire on this podcast. So what we're going to do real quick is just maybe close your eyes, kind of settle in, and we're going to take a deep breath in slowly, like on a 5 count, hold it at the top for 5, exhale for 5. And we'll do that 3 times, and then we'll get things started. All right? So if you're comfortable, just kind of settle in and close the eyes and take that deep breath, hold it at the top. And out. And in. Holding. And out. One more. All right. We're settled in. We're here. We're ready to be present with each other. This is our first go at a conversation between Du and I, and we're coming here hoping to inspire and to share some of our experience and see if it resonates with anyone. Does that sound about right?
So, hi Andrew, I'm Du, and welcome to the show. This is the Du Andrew podcast. So, I just thank you for the intro, for the preliminary words, Andrew, and I'm just going to say that I'm celebrating this occasion of our first podcast together with a bottle of ginger ale instead of my traditional water, and I'm hoping that it inspires me, and not only that, I hope that what we talk about here, my co-conspirators, because we did conspire together, so now we're co-conspirators. I hope that what we discuss and bring up will not only help enlighten and edify you, but also entertain and bring you joy.
Heck yeah. I got a little homemade kombucha here just in case,
I have to get my my roll of paper towels because I have allergies and my nose is always running, and I don't want to show that on camera.
We keep it extra real around here.
So excuse my weak sinuses, but that's just something hopefully that will go away, or you'll get used to, or it will decrease.
Few options. Yep.
So let's talk about how we met. So basically, Andrew and I met through a young lady, a 24-year-old visionary named Gabriella Gavalenko, who I call the mystic, the prophet, the prodigy mystic. And she just is, and she's a big YouTube presence and everything. And she has her private community where she gets together with her tribe, or whatever you want to call it, every 2 weeks, and we have like deep discussions about higher awareness and the divine feminine and mental versus heart. And I've been, her video yesterday like opened a big portal for me of understanding after listening to her for about a year and a half about how the divine feminine is not only irreplaceable, but also irresistible, but also it showed me how much I'd been in my head for 50 years since my delusions, since my period of delusion, which we'll go into, I'm sure, late in time. But basically, so Andrew and I met through Gabby, and she has a show every 2 weeks, a Zoom call every 2 weeks, and Andrew and I became friendly, and one thing led to another, and he invited me to, I'm really like seeking higher vibe, higher awareness, soul tribe at this point. That's one of my main focuses in life, and so he introduced me to another group, and we became even better friends. And then he just had a brainstorm 3 nights ago. He said, "Let's do a podcast," and uh, I've been I've been living in the kingdom of Jesus of the Lord for the last 6 months with Pedro Adeo, and it was just like really to me it was like a God, I should say from the beginning, we aren't going to say God in this broadcast. We're going to say Gus. Gus stands for God, Universe, and Source. So anyway, when Andrew called me and said, "Let's do a podcast," I've been trying to put together a podcast for like the last 3 months. So it was an answer to heavenly petitions, and I'll let you. I tend to monopolize Andrew, so you take it from here.
Yeah. No, that's all very accurate from your perspective. Yeah, I was on a walk with Willow Dog, and as Dale said, we've been getting to know each other better over the last several months. And yeah, I just was down in this little valley. It's got a little creek that runs through it, and Will usually gets a drink, and I usually hang out there for a bit. And I had enjoyed a little there, but before the walk, and was feeling extra inspired. And all of a sudden, like, he had mentioned Pod Match, this like service to match you up with hosts and guests and that sort of thing. And I was gonna play around with it, but then I was like, wait, why would I do that when I could just talk to Dale and record it, and we'll have our own little thing. So, and I was just, it seemed so obvious. I didn't know how I'd missed it, but here we are. We're doing the thing, and yeah, Gabby has been an inspiration among other individuals, but it was fortuitous that we were able to meet in that community. Dale showed up extra enthusiastic one day, and I think that cemented it because he mentioned that he shared a passion for cannabis, and I obviously do as well. I owned a commercial grow in Oklahoma for a few years, and still cultivate here in Colorado, and I enjoy that and the process and the whole thing. And so that was one thing we bonded over. And then I don't know, I just enjoyed his general personality.
Could I just add something about that?
Of
About
course.
my enthusiasm that day?
Yes.
That was my enthusiasm was the result of my first ingestion of THC cannabis in 17 years. So,
yeah, long tolerance rate.
So, well, I'm my main podcast shtick is mental illness and recovery from schizophrenia or severe mental illness. But and I'm integrating THC and cannabis in the story of my recovery more and more. But basically, the reason I was so enthusiastic that day with Gabby, and people I think were like getting a little uncomfortable because they were seeing like what Dale would really like, but anyway, so the reason I was so enthusiastic was it was like the first 1 or 2 days since after 17 years that I had actually smoked THC while living in THC, Teaneck, Hackensack community, the whole city, for 50 years. And including the first 37 where I was smoking every day.
Yeah. So we went on a 17-year tolerance break and came to Gabby's meeting shortly after, all excited. And I thought it was hilarious. I'm never going to judge someone for being too happy. That seems a little ridiculous. So But I connected with him after the call because it gave me a hint that we might have something more than I realized in common. And turns out we have much more in common than just, our enjoyment of THC and him living in THC. There's a spiritual component and a mental health component that add a lot of richness to our conversations, and I hope to this podcast. So with that, I don't know, Dale. I feel like we need a little context for you because, like, if we just come into to do with no expectations, and we hear some of your stories, it's sometimes a little hard to understand where they're coming from.
Okay, well, I'll give you like the basic 5 minute podcast presentation of Dale presenting his story to a new host who doesn't know anything about me.
Yeah, the very tall building elevator pitch.
Well, this is it. So usually I begin my story with a poem. I'm a poet. I have a archive of 5,000 poems, and I have like 2 introductory poems, and that's usually how I like start podcasts, is because it summarizes in 18 lines what it can take 2 hours to explain. So basically, hi, I'm God. What's called Dale reviewing what actually happened, and it goes like this. Hi, I'm God was a joke I made after Killer Dartmouth toke of some primo Ivy League smoke, which apparently caused me to croak because in mental hospital I awoke with roommate Gabriel, the main bloke, who did my delusions angelically stroke, even while doctor claimed my brain broke the moment divine gag I spoke, testifying I was only bit quack, which clinicians diagnosed as psychotic attack, until I came to Teaneck Hackensack to pursue resident therapy program track and deal with my evident lack of reason among psychiatric patient back, who never gave me any slack. Under interrogation, the story didn't crack.
Beautiful. Dale, thanks for sharing that work of art. You're not wrong.
But so that's basically what happened. I was at Dartmouth College, and I came up with what I thought was like the most hilarious joke I'd ever. I'm in boarding school. They called me feisty because I was like one of the smallest kids in school, but I was also I faced down anybody, so they called me feisty. And then I grew up to a respectable height of 5'8" and everything. But anyway, so. The idea was I came up with this joke. Hi, I'm God, and I was walking around Dartmouth campus, like telling everybody my joke, and then seeing how long it was before I burst into a hysterical laughter because how could God be 5'8"? So this went on for like 2 days, and to tell you the truth, Andrew, this is like sort of like the dark part of the story, but Dartmouth campus was getting more and more claustrophobic. So basically what happened was I went to my best friend for the summer, who I tripped with, who was on the trip that basically was starting this whole thing. And I went to his room, and I wanted to borrow his car to like get out of town for a while, just let things. Long story short, I'm in his room. Campus cops come in and they say, "Are you Dale?" And I say yes. And they say, "Would you come with us, please?" I say, "Sure." So I figured they're taking me to meet the president of the university, but instead they're taking me on a 2-minute ride to the infirmary, where they take me up the stairs and put me in a room and consequently interrogate me by 3 sets of Ivy League psychiatrists for the next 4 hours. And then they put me in a room, give me a shot, and 3 days later I'm in a hospital in New York, the best mental hospital in New York City, with a roommate named Gabriel. It was very deferential towards my mother, Mary Alma, whose second husband's name was Joseph, and who ultimately married the judge.
You can't make this stuff up, folks. The real life story of the man, the myth, the legend over here. So, yeah, I've heard the story, versions of it, several times over the year or so that we've been interacting, and last 3 or 4 months that we've been talking more regularly. And it's just there to add some context. It doesn't. I don't believe it defines him as a person, but it it is important to note. It is important to know because he does draw a lot from how that shifted his experience in the world. I would say.
Well, to, to, to summarize, I mean, I had my 70th birthday on May 24th this year, 2025. And at exactly midnight, May 25th, 1975, the moment my 20th birthday ended, there began a full lunar eclipse, a full lunar eclipse. So I was at Dartmouth, and I was at the highest point in Dartmouth College watching this lunar eclipse, and I said, "This means I have to go." I know I've told you this. This is just background for them.
No, it's for the audience.
But anyway, so I say this means I have to go crazy for 10 years. This eclipse means I have to go crazy for 10 years. And I did. I came to Hackensack. I was hospitalized 9 times probably. Well, actually, within the next 10 years, I was hospitalized probably 12 times. So basically, I went crazy. But so then, okay, after that decade was over, Hackensack just continued. THC just continued, and I'm saying, not only is it giving me a home where I never had as a teenager, because my mother divorced when I was 10, and I moved from Abilene, Texas, which was a great environment, very stable and everything, to New York City, which was like totally, a totally different culture and everything, and then boarding school and then Dartmouth and everything. I was on the fast track to American success. I'm at what are the 5 things that Dew and George W. Bush have in common?
Yeah.
Well, first off, Dale was born in Midland, Texas. George W. grew up in Midland, Texas. George W. went to Phillips Andover. I went to Phillips Exeter. He went Ivy League, Yale. I went after Ivy League, Dartmouth. He went Washington, D.C. I went Hackensack. He was the son of the President of the United States. I was the son of the President of the American Bar Association. He did cocaine. I did spot. I did LSD.
I mean, the similarities are uncanny. We're looking at the future president here.
Well, to concretize it, so I visited my blood father twice. I didn't know my blood father until I was 26 because my mother, I pulled off some shenanigans, and I never knew him growing up and everything. And we were separated anyway by, towns, distances, and everything. But anyway, so one time, I go down to Midland, Texas, where he lived his whole life in Midland, basically. And we're driving around and everything, and he's showing me the town, and nothing extraordinary. And then he drives by, says this is a childhood home of George W. Bush. So, and it's a modest house, not even as big as my father's, really. I think it was 2 stories and everything, but it's a nice house, but very modest. And then he drives another block and he turns into his driveway, and I'm like going, hold on a second. Who's supposed to be president here?
Yeah. Well, needless to say, Dale has some entertaining stories, and we will tell those over time, no question about it. That'll be those are unavoidable. I have some stories too, it turns out. So yeah, that'll
Yeah,
be
why don't
entertaining. I hope.
why don't you take the focus off me, Andrew, and you tell a story. Tell a story
Okay.
about well, tell a story about whatever you want to tell a story about. I've been improvising.
Yeah, well, I think something relevant for me is just the quick. I'll give the quick elevator pitch for me too. I grew up in a smallish town in North Dakota, so a small town in a small state, and grew up pretty sheltered, pretty religious, and sort of emerged from that bubble. And I went to college and uh, enjoyed sort of that process and then got a corporate gig for a company called State Street doing financial work, and that led to, well, an opportunity to go to India. That was sort of probably the most interesting thing that came from that experience. But it allowed me to travel to India and live there for nearly 2 years. And
Right.
during that time, we were getting just like the worst weed imaginable, and like worse than like 70s weed. And it was full of seeds. And I was thinking to myself, well, surely if I keep the males and females separate, I can grow something better than what we're buying. So I started growing plants on the balcony of my service department in India. So there was help coming in on a semi-regular basis to clean and all that. So the whole hotel knew that I was growing weed on my balcony, which in India was highly frowned upon, to say the least. But I think they knew that my corporate contract with their hotel was lucrative enough to overlook something like that. So they did.
Right.
Anyway, so that kind of is what started my passion for growing and slowly started my transition from corporate world to something else. And yeah, when I got back from India, it was getting weird. They were offshoring a lot of jobs over there, so the U.S. office was kind of getting sparse. And then COVID hit, and we were working from home. So a lot happened pretty quick after I returned, and 2020 was sort of the reset year for me. My wife and I separated. I left my corporate job. I moved to Colorado Springs, where I live now, and started going down the path of this. We made an offer on the property that we ended up having the grow at in Oklahoma. So pretty quick U-turn, and then really, let's be honest, like it was a spiritual awakening too that sort of happened simultaneously, and that led to books and meditation and just rethinking what I'm doing here on Earth, and that with the regulation that was growing in Oklahoma led to sort of me settling back here and shutting down the grow and settling back here in Colorado Springs, and I really enjoyed sort of this post business void space where I'm kind of figuring things out and enjoying hanging out with my dog and mountain biking and growing cannabis and talking about consciousness. So here we are.
Well, one thing that I've always been, fascinated by is, and basically feel the same way is the spiritual or the spiritual connection between the plants. I mean, not just cannabis or whatever, but ultimately between all plants. And this might be going a little woo woo for me for my normal self, but I just like have always been fascinated by your mindset of growing a plant is a act of love, full of spirituality, and you can both the plant and you can like reflect love back to each other and doing it.
Yeah, Dale. It wasn't always the case, but certainly the last probably 3-4 crops, I brought a lot more attention to the process, and shifting away from more like synthetic type nutrients to full organic, and it has been a process for sure. And cannabis was part of my awakening as well. It brought in some of that feminine essence into my existence. I think that had been pretty thoroughly suppressed, which alludes to the video you were referring to earlier of Gabby, right? How the feminine essence was repressed because it wasn't safe to exist in this world, or at least
Right.
that's my opinion. And so cannabis brought that essence to me. It made me not afraid of feeling my feelings and that sort of thing. And so the perfect storm, right, of separation from my wife, sort of creating this void, and then leaving the corporate job, and then starting this new business, definitely allowed time and space for me to rethink. Call it a midlife crisis, call it whatever you want, right? But it created an opportunity to reevaluate what I'm on Earth here to do, and actually put some thought into it, and not even thought, to lean into the heart space and feel what it is that's true for me. And so far that's led me to here talking to Dale on a computer. So
Well, I think, I just, you said something that caught my attention about just like the reciprocality of all love, and all living things, I mean, whether you want to talk about God or universe or source or Gus,
Gus, yeah.
I mean, everything is, and even the inanimate things are filled with God-driven atoms, and everything is built on atoms, Gus atoms, and once you realize that, then the quantum unity that people talk about isn't that difficult to understand, but it's just like a matter of like being able to like micro focus within yourself upon that, like, a fundamental atom, or that fundamental molecule, or whatever you want to call it, that makes you, beyond the perception of society, the personality and the identity that you are, that is really like the source of the Big Bang of enlightenment.
yeah. Yeah, it is a shift in perception ultimately, and it does require. I mean, I think the double slit experiment helped clarify things for me, because, for those who need some sort of science to explain their experience, I don't necessarily require that, but it can be helpful. In that experiment, they were shooting photons through this slit, and they behaved as a wave until they started measuring it, observing it, and then they behave like a particle. And that's the point, is we're collapsing wave light energy into particles, into something we perceive as solid, and that is the nature of our experience here. And
In the way that we perceive,
correct.
by,
And
by,
so,
by our perception.
and like you said, everything is made of atoms, but we also know that atoms are mostly empty space.
Right.
So if everything is made of mostly empty space, then we know our perception is being shifted to perceive it more solid than it, quote, really is. And you can take that and sort of extrapolate it out however far you would like, but I'm going all the way, right? We are creating reality through the power of our mind, through the energy that is Gus, God, universe, source, and that is what we are experiencing. So once you see it that way, then you change how you behave theoretically in this world.
Right. So, as I said, I'm a poet. So part of the podcast every week is giving at least one poem. And what you just said about about focusing on the cells and like the atoms and like the micro stuff that makes up the human mechanism, the human avatar, and everything. So this is called "Do Going Dale to Dale." Imagine humans being a specific cell in God's brain free of hell. And myth that man ever fell, which does what religions tell, which is what the religions tell, and the dogmas they try to sell, so that all rebellion leaders quell. As weekly pastors spin a tale, trying to explain gospel well, with result from pulpit they yell, judgment to those whom they teach, knowing with regularity they will preach. And many their goals do reach, knowing how to write a speech, aware of topics they cannot preach. But I'll wait for Kingdom Beach, where people talk each teach. No matter what is your niche, lovely lady, sweet as Georgia Peach.
Hell yeah, I love it. Yeah, resonates. I grew up in a very religious household, and yeah, I'm not here to knock the church, but it it definitely felt like a distortion to me, what they were teaching, and
Well, I think I'm sure I mentioned Pedro Deo to you. He's a big guy. He's like a eight-figure uh, kingdom kingdom entrepreneur, and he teaches kingdom, business and everything. But basically, he's like changed my whole vision, not only of Christ, but of the kingdom of God and everything. So, if you're interested, he has a lot of things on YouTube. It's ADAO. So my counselor said about that last poem, you really blew up religion, and then I said, well, let's go on to the next one. And he says, I say, okay. So this is called After Delusion Starts to Evaporate. Everything that has to do with triune God is old Dale. I am breaking out of since I'm born into Dale, where unity of quinity trumps duality of trinity, while I support THC, both the city and herb, over wine because I need not to be consumed to be absorbed. This Dale is first of liberation after 249 years of decline, from the principles we did express from beginning too noble to be integrated until humanity was prepared for full meaning of both freedom and liberty, and the crucial components overlooked in the enthusiasm of our justified celebration. So he says, so you did in this poem to the political system what you did to the religious system in the other poem.
yeah, we're gonna have poems for all the systems, I imagine. uh, yeah, the systems are here, right? And I think, for those of us with eyes to see, we start to see cracks forming in the foundation of many of these systems, because they were never built to serve humanity. They were built to serve themselves, and that illusion or belief, I think, is beginning to really start to penetrate, just because of how insane it all seems when you kind of sit back and take a look at it. That's my opinion. So here's to insanity. Dale talks about going insane, and we feel like the world is insane, and so what is sanity really? Like, what does that word even mean anymore? I don't know. Do you have anything to share on that, Dale?
I proposed this to someone in a podcast application. Talk about what is actual sanity. But and who has the right to declare what it is. So, personally, I say I'm sane, and I have the right to declare what is sanity because I've been through the deepest pits of psychosis and I've come back. And I know what true madness is. So don't, and people, this is what I like to say. for 70 years, basically since I was born, I mean, I used to say a lot, nobody knew what Dale was up to for the first 20 years of his life, so, yeah, for the last 50 years, I've been in Hackensack, and as I famously told you, I popped the water balloon of my being God delusion, and it's like cleanse me so that I can be truly Dale. And one of the things that I figured out is truly Dale is, you know, I'm not, I'm not going to. This is the insight I had like 4 days ago, Andrew.
Yeah.
I'm not going to argue about who I am. No longer going to argue about who I am not. I'm just going to speak about who I am.
I like that. I do. Yeah, I like to speak to what is positive, what is true, and what is, right? And to not get distracted by the other things, because that's the point is, part of that awakening process is letting go of the parts of you or aspects or integrating the aspects that aren't serving you anymore, and
Yeah,
that one, it took you down a path, like you say. What better way to spend it?
right. Well, you know what I'm finding, Andrew?
Yeah.
Is that being outside of God and letting God be God is a lot better, and feeling so I can feel the blessings of God instead of just feeling that I'm like God and not feeling any blessings.
Mm.
So now, with this delusion of being God popped, I'm now Dale feeling and receiving the blessings that I should have been receiving for the last 50 years if
Mm.
authority and the deep state and whoever hadn't intervened, if the evil doctor conspiracy hadn't intervened, so
Mm.
uh, but but I'm just finding I'm like so grateful. I'm just like feeling these like and it hasn't shown up as money yet, but but it has shown up as a new living room set, and it has shown up in uh, you know create good poems every day, not meeting like real people on the internet and everything. So the blessings are just but and that's that was what I was going to say about reaction to Gabby's video yesterday. Is I realized I've been thinking of things sort of like as a dam, and behind this dam is God's blessings, and under the dam is me. And like I've been seeing like a crack in the dam, as if the whole dam is going to give way, and and flood everybody, and basically cause destruction. But what I realized listening to Gabby yesterday is the mental dam that I have in my head is dripping more and more constantly into my heart, so that all this fluid, all this water that I gathered in the last 50 years of being God, of thinking myself God in my head, can now be fully transported to the feminine heart.
Beautiful. Yeah. There are a couple chapters in the book, The Untethered Soul, that talk about, how we store up energy in our hearts through, negative experience, positive experience, anything that we really want to hold on to for whatever reason, right?
Right.
And they refer to him as samskaras. And, part of the purification process of letting that energy flow through is releasing those, as they sort of come up. So I mean, it sounds like that's sort of what you're describing.
The bottom line to what I was thinking about was blessings are vertical, they aren't horizontal. So I've been thinking like this dam, sort of like, here's a dam, and I'm waiting for the water from the dam to reach me. But actually, the dam is already in my head, and now it's just a matter of opening the spigot to like let that knowledge and that masculine goodness flood more and more easily into my heart, so I become more balanced in the masculine and the feminine.
Okay. All right. We're on a journey, everyone. No, I mean, I can even, like, even in the time we've been talking, I've observed a bit of a shift in how you show up in conversations generally. And so, and I feel myself shifting too, just through the things I've been learning and experiencing, as well as what we've shared, right? So all of it is sort of contributing to, like, level ups, I feel like, and it's fun to see that and experience that, and be a part of the journey,
You know, I mean, people ask me, I've been thinking about in Revelations the Word of God. At the end he says, there's going to be a Word of God that is going to be the name of the Lord. Well, it says there's going to be a guy with the name who's the Word of God, who's no one else will know his name. So I've often thought of myself as that, as Dale, Dewey, the whole 5 in 1, But ultimately, what I was thinking is that if I am the Word, then not only do I travel simultaneously, and this is, I was thinking sort of like a Hall of Mirrors yesterday. I meant with my podcasts and my Instagram reels and everything, that everybody's like sort of like coming into like this realization of who is this guy? I mean, he's everywhere, and so it's like it's sort of like that, It's just like, well, I can do this, and and this is the next step.
There you go. Well, I don't know. Anything else we need to cover on this inaugural episode? Any big revelations or new thoughts or?
Uh, well, we're at 42 minutes. Yeah, I think that's good for the first show, and I meant I think any like and further introductory things. Maybe I should say that actually I've been out of I had 15 hospitalizations. I've been out of the hospital 20 years. I don't consider myself schizophrenic anymore. I consider myself XCPTSD, which is extremely complex PTSD, which I say only people who have been in the mental health system for more than 30 years can experience. And basically, I am sane, and I know. So I figured out my purpose from God at the moment.
Hit me.
Simplify and purify.
I like it. Yeah, I've actually, purification has definitely come into my thought process too. It's like cleaning up the garbage, the mental garbage, that the programming, if you will, that we all seem to carry, and just becoming aware of it, and then also just operating from a different perspective. And that current one I would label as Christ consciousness. That's kind of been my lens that I'm viewing the world through, and it's that I didn't even come to that like set of knowledge until like February. So we're about 5 months deep into this process of exploring this philosophy, and it's been pretty game changing for me. So we'll be sharing more about that, I'm sure, in future episodes. Dale and I tend to see mostly eye to eye, and where we don't, we disagree. We disagree agreeably, but we have a good time chatting.
I think it's because we're reading different books.
Well, That's confirmed.
So, but I agree. We do see eye to eye 90% of the time, and if we don't, then that shows like a path that people can follow, rather than just blindly following. Because the thing about purify and simplify is I don't want to be followed. I just want like people to tune in, figure it out, and then go their own way.
Actually, yeah, that's kind of profound because there is a lot of truth to that. I think that was my mindset for a long time. Is like the world needed fixing, and if only they would come to me, I could fix them. And so, but that's not how this works. It's about me doing the work and being an example and living what I believe is true. And if people see it and think it's cool, great. And if they don't, that's fine also, but to just be there to hold space and extend love to those that I come in contact with. That's really
And never forget, Andrew, one deal at a time.
confirmed.
The key to happiness is a deal-to-deal existence, and the first deal is the hardest. So if you can get past the first deal, the second deal is easy because then you can go deal to deal forever.
Yeah, indeed. And turn all your summits into Dales. That's our advice. Dale is both a name and it refers to a valley, but we're just playing with the language. Dale's good at that, so I enjoy it.
And then actually, as we move through this podcast, Dale and Dale is going to become more of the holy word, and I'm going to revert to do.
Yeah, do. Dale has many identities, and do is a fun one.
So just to simplify, I have 5 personalities: Dale, Dewey, Duck, and Genius. And my actual present personality is Dale. So I go by both Do and Dale. And for a long time, I couldn't exist simultaneously with any of my 5 personalities. So Do and Dale is a happy compromise. But, so Dale is fine, Do is fine, but just so you know.
Yeah. It'd be like if people called me R, which is kind of cool, but Do, the initials of Do make they roll off the tongue a little bit better. So Do and Drew here, doing the thing, and we're gonna keep doing the thing and see what happens. Hope you've enjoyed our inaugural episode, and onward and upward, as they say.
And I'll end with this. Why do they call them pirates?
Why?
Because they are.
We love each other and we love you guys. Hope everyone is keeping well out there.
Okay, bye-bye.